Hey, Pope, am I too loud? Do I need to mute myself?
No, you're fine because I got you coming through the computer. I'll be able to handle it. You're fine.
Let me know.
Okay.
Live from Columbia, this is Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. Be a part of tonight's show. Call us at 800-956-7266 or email talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, here are your hosts for Sports Talk, Phil Kornbluth, Kevin McCrary, and Tom Hayes.
Acknowledge that kind of stuff. This is, y'all know I love coaching. I love my job.
Thought about it a little bit. It's crazy. It goes by fast. The guys sit here every year and tell you how fast it goes by. Your career here, and it's true. You don't really believe it when you're younger, but when it gets to this point, it's like, wow, you look back and everything flies by.
Dabo Sweeney, Dylan Thompson counting down the hours to their game this weekend and to the game following that. But we are talking basketball here early on tonight on Sports Talk as we come to you from Charleston. We are at the College of Charleston here for the annual Charleston Classic Basketball Tournament. South Carolina and Cornell going to tip it off here at 7:30. We've already had 2 games played today. Boy, Miami looked really good in winning their game just a little while ago. And right now we've got Penn State and Charlotte playing. Charlotte is leading Penn State 40-34. Miami beat Drexel in the second game of the day. And in the first game of the day, Akron beat Southern Cal. And those 2 games were decided by the same score of 66-46. The 2 winners looked very, very good. Phil Kornbluth here in Charleston. The Professor Tom Hayes back in our studios in downtown Columbia. And, well, rivalry week began a little bit early because it's the USC women and the Clemson women at the Colonial Life Arena tonight. And KMAC has set up camp there, courtside. And I imagine from a Gamecock standpoint, KMAC, pretty exciting time for the number 2 ranked team in the country, which has a chance to move to number 1.
Yeah, potentially, and they are looking to move to 2-0. Clemson already 2-0, Corn, and a lot of fans expected here. They had general admission, Gamecock Club members. I think they're letting them free and students free, so could be a big crowd on hand. And anytime you get the Gamecocks and the Tigers together, that's a cool thing. We had a meet in soccer last week, meeting in basketball this week, and I think they meet again next week in some sport. I don't remember which one, though.
Yeah, that'll be talked about quite a bit. In fact, we had the Gamecocks wrapping up practice a little while ago. We'll hear from Lorenzo Ward coming up. One of the Gamecock defensive linemen, Jared Dixon, is going to be out for this week. We'll try to get him back into the punches.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think Gerald Dixon has probably been slowed for most of the year because not having a dominant defensive end on the other side, he has been constantly double teamed this year. It'd be interesting to see how Allen Williams does this year. He played pretty well against Florida, but again, as we said, one-dimensional defense, they pretty much can read their keys very carefully against Florida. But it'll be interesting to see how he turns in this game. Of course, being a freshman, his upper body strength is really not there yet to disengage against blocking, but he played pretty well last week.
We got a lot going on tonight. Lee Sterling will be here in a little bit with his Sterling picks for this weekend. We'll take your phone calls, too. Go ahead and jump on the lines. 800-956-7266 is our number. From Charleston and Columbia, it's Sports Talk here on a Thursday night. We come to you from Charleston. Side of basketball, South Carolina is taking on Cornell. The Big Red sitting off at 7:30 tonight. The Gamecocks trying to bounce back from their loss the other night to Baylor at home. First loss for them. Cornell coming off a win over Colgate. Good basketball tonight. Right now, Charlotte is leading Penn State at halftime of the third game of the day. It's 40-34 Charlotte. Earlier today, in the first game, Akron beat Southern Cal 66-46. Akron now 2-0, and Southern Cal 1-2. Akron really clamped down defensively on Southern Cal in this one, holding the Trojans to 28% shooting for the game. Meantime, Akron, the Zips, had 8 3-pointers on the day. They were led in scoring by Quan Cheatham Jr. and Pat Forsyth with 15 points each. And then in the second game, Miami, very good-looking team, beat Florida the other day, and they take care of Drexel, 66-46, same score as the first game. And the Hurricanes go 3-0, and they've won 4 straight in this tournament. They won this tournament with a 3-0 run in 2009, and they look like a really well-balanced team. Angel Rodriguez had 15 points. Manu Lathamp had 15 points to lead the Hurricanes today. They hit 11 of 21 3-pointers, so they had the outside ball going for them this afternoon. Drexel falls to 0-3 on the season. Now, if South Carolina wins tonight, they'll play tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. If they lose tonight, they'll play tomorrow night at 9 o'clock. Of course, they'll pair off with either Penn State or Charlotte, depending on the outcome of that game. K-Mac, you've got the USC women and the Clemson women going to tip it off in a little bit at the Colonial Life Arena. I mean, on paper, this South Carolina team, talent-wise, head and shoulders above Clemson right now. Their new coach trying to improve their talent and catch up with a team like South Carolina. But this really should be no contest in Columbia today.
Well, yeah, the Gamecocks certainly have the talent advantage. Audra Smith just in year number 2 running the Clemson program as they're trying to rebuild things a little bit there. And Dawn Staley really, let's face it, she has it rolling at South Carolina. They could be a Final Four team. They could be a national championship contender with what she's done. But you never know. In these early season games, these rivalry games, crazier things have happened, Corn. So I'm getting reindoctrinated. This is my first women's basketball game probably in about 18 months or longer.
Well, they have similar rules to the men, but not all the rules are the same. For example, they play with a smaller basketball, right, Pro? And there's no backcourt in women's basketball, right?
No. But I'll tell you the big advantage right now is their front court. Remember when Dawn Staley first came to South Carolina, she barely could find a girl 6'1" or 6'2". Then she started to bring in the taller girl. And they will have the advantage as far as height is concerned. I think the key disadvantage, which will ultimately be an advantage for South Carolina, is she's still experimenting. She may have too much talent right now, and so that's the key if they can get some continuity tonight. Remember, they struggled when they were starting to mix and match players against Southern California and had to come back in the last half of the second half to win that ball game. So it'll be interesting to see if she cuts off the experimentation and tries to see who's just the best team and start her upperclassmen tonight to see what happens. But a lot of experimentation early for Dawn Staley to see what she has.
All right, some notes from USC football. As we mentioned, Gerald Dixon is not going to play. Just walks past. Are you always talking football? Can you ever talk basketball? So he doesn't walk by when we were talking about the basketball. He walked by when we were talking football. Anyway, Gerald Dixon's out with an AC joint injury, unlikely to play Saturday, according to Lorenzo Ward. David Johnson, Bryson Allen Williams, likely the defensive end starters for the Gamecocks. Ward also said that Abu Lamine he had that car accident a couple of weeks ago. He was ejected from the car, and he has a sore above his eye. He can't put on his helmet, so he is out, of course. The starters in the secondary will be Chris Lamont, Rico McWilliams, Bryson Williams, and T.J. Gurley. And looks like Jonathan Walton Skymore will continue to team together at linebacker. So they keep the defense together little by little, and they hope that they have found the run they carry into this game with a strong defensive performance. And, guys, South Alabama is a team that South Carolina should have no trouble with in this game. And you would like to see, if you're South Carolina, of course, you'd like to see them go out, play a clean game, not get anybody hurt, but really, K-Mac, see that defense step up and dominate and build on what they did last week against Florida, because they did do a good job against Florida last week on the road. Build on that and then carry some momentum into the rivalry game the next week.
Yeah, well, I mean, they did do better against Florida, no doubt about it. And Corey Miller touched on this last night. Florida's offense is one-dimensional, and it is easier for a team to slow down a one-dimensional team. Georgia was a little one-dimensional, too. They didn't have a great passing attack at that point in the season. So, they're going to have to build on that, but it's going to be a bigger challenge against Clemson next week, because they're going to face probably a two-dimensional quarterback with Deshaun Watson, but we don't know how healthy he's going to be. So that's the big question with Clemson and that offense is Deshaun Watson going to play? I think he will, but how healthy will he be and how limited will he be? I don't know that they're going to be able to cut him loose in 2 weeks against the Gamecocks, or less than 2 weeks now. We're down to 12 days, 10 days or so.
Yeah.
Well, Corn,
I think the dilemmas for Clemson here is the fact that as you get ready for South Carolina this week, Pro, and you've got Deshaun Watson rehabbing the knee, how much can he rehab the knee over the next couple of days to where when you come back on Monday and you go on the training and preparation for South Carolina, how much can you practice him and scheme the offense around him, knowing that he is susceptible to re-injuring that knee easily because and everything you plan. If you put all your eggs in that basket that it's going to be Deshaun Watson, if he goes down, you're going to be kind of in the same situation you were in last week against Georgia Tech, when all your game planning went out the window in the first quarter, and you had to go with Cole Stout, a guy who hadn't practiced with the first team all week.
Well, I think problem is, I think we may see a Willis Reed moment. I mean, where Deshaun Watson comes out there, see what he has. If he's good, okay, well and good. But I think Cole Stout is going to play a lot of that football game for him, because right now, Deshaun Watson, as good as he is, he's still a freshman, and a lot of his play is still on instinct. His instinct is to move in that pocket and to tell a guy, okay, stay in the pocket, we don't want you to run. That's almost against his whole mantra as far as playing the game of football is concerned. So I, like you, think that you've got to get Cole Stout a lot of snaps in preparation for South Carolina, because unlike Georgia Tech, where he probably didn't take a few snaps to get ready for the football game, he's got to come in there and execute well if he has to sub for Deshaun Watson. So he's got to roll out the snaps in preparation for the Gamecocks.
And how much can he practice, too, guys? That's another practice.
Fans should fall into a false sense of security here, because Cole Stout, given the preparation time, he is capable of not doing things with the offense, but he's not going to be facing a great defense, guys. K-Mac, I mean, the South Carolina defense is not going to morph into some great unit between now and then. And we'll bring you in a moment to talk about that after the break. But, I mean, it's still going to be a susceptible South Carolina defense against which this Clemson offense, even with Cole Stout at quarterback and even with a bit of a makeshift offensive line that hasn't played that great, can have some success. But here's the thing. What is South Carolina going to do against Clemson's defense? Clemson's defense is not going away. We'll talk more about that in a moment.
my defense.
I went ahead and put you down.
Don't forget to get your rivalry week activities off to a great start this coming Sunday night, 5:45 at Seawells. It's the annual Night with the Stars. Great gathering of former Gamecocks and Tigers. George Rogers, Brandon Bennett, Sheldon Brown, Mike Hull, Danny Ford, Bill Spires, Pernell Wilford, Spencer Shuey. Tickets are going quick. You can still get some. Call 803-605-2204. That's 803-605-2204. Money raised here to benefit the trauma unit at Palmetto Richland Hospital. They have raised over $100,000 the last 4 years for Palmetto Richland Hospital. Again, that number, 803-605-2204. So, K-Mac, as I was saying as we hit the break, the thing about that game next week, the real one constant is Clemson's defense. You know, South Carolina's defense up and down. Their offense has been fairly constant, though sometimes stuttering. I mean, they got off to the good start against Florida, then they disappeared. One thing that's been pretty constant all year long between the two teams has been Clemson's defense.
Yeah, and I think for the most part, South Carolina's offense has been pretty good. They haven't faced, I don't think, a complete defense in a front seven like Clemson has all season. But, I think this one will be one of those deals, maybe like it is almost every year, which team makes the fewest mistakes and who wins the turnover battle. That was the case last year, and, which offense can play with the fewest mistakes. Both teams, I think, are going to have an opportunity to move the ball and score some points. Clemson has the advantage offensively. I think USC will have an advantage. Clemson has an advantage defensively, I should say, but the Gamecocks will have the advantage regardless of whether Watson plays or not offensively, I think. This is a pretty darn Gamecock offense. Kind of got lost in that bad defense, guys. It's having the best season ever for a Gamecock quarterback. This guy's going to throw for over 3,000 yards. That's pretty remarkable what he's put together this season, and that offense has scored a lot of points, and they've had the long field almost every time on these drives. So, it's going to be a lot more interesting than it was going to be a couple weeks ago, to paraphrase Steve Spurrier.
Yeah, no question about that. I mean, things can change in a hurry, and we don't know what kind of shape the two teams are going to be in coming out of this game. I mean, Deshaun Watson got hurt or had contact last Saturday. It's not like he had to get hit by somebody to get hurt out there. By the way, Pro, you know what today is? You know what today is?
It's Thursday.
No, 10-year anniversary
10 years ago on this date. Yeah, 10 years ago on this date. I think K-Mac must have done the draw between the Gamecocks and the Tigers broke out in Death Valley. If you want to relive one of the most embarrassing moments in the history of sports in South Carolina, K-Mac put the video up on the website. Why'd you do that, K-Mac? Why'd you want to ruin my face all over again?
I just thought it was intriguing to go back, and it's been 10 years. That's hard to believe, and to watch that and hear the announcers call it, it was surreal to say the least.
K-Mac loves a train wreck, Corn.
Yeah. You're right about that. And the color analyst, you might recall, I don't remember his name, but he was saying the police need to bring the dogs out, the mace, the billiard clubs, anything they could get their hands on to get these players back in order. All right, we're here to break. Lee Sterling is coming up here on SportsTalk. Phil Kornblue down in Charleston. Well, the Charleston game tonight, tomorrow night, it continues on Sunday. K-Max over the Toronto Lock Arena for USC and Clemson women's basketball. That'll tip off at 7. USC men tipping off tonight at 7:30. And the pros back in our studios, Main Street, downtown Columbia. And Lee Sterling joins us now from Points Unknown. He likes to stay in the shadows for some reason. Lee Sterling from Paramount Sports, a 3-1 week on his picks on Sports Talk last week. Good evening, Lee. How are you?
Good evening, and what is the reason you're at this basketball classic? South Carolina?
Because it is a basketball classic. Yeah, we're here to cover the Gamecocks.
Okay. Got to see Miami earlier today, huh? Pretty good team, huh?
We talked about them earlier. They look really good. They look really good.
Nice pickup. Yeah.
I mean, they've got a good thing. They're long and lean inside, and they've got out.
Yeah, they get a big power forward back at the start of January, so they're going to need the ACC schedule. But it's fun to have all three sports being competitive.
Absolutely. All right, 3-1 last week for you with us, and that's a week for you. So you must be feeling pretty good rolling into this week.
Yeah, I am. A lot of the weeks where there may not be even marquee games. In the last couple of weeks, we've had 3 and 4 or 5 just marquee games. You don't have a game like that this week. I mean, there's some important games, but there's not, the Alabama, Ole Miss, or some games between like Mississippi State and Alabama, LSU. But there's some great opportunities, and what I'm saying there is, I like to throw out some keys to your listeners sometimes. Teams coming off buys, college and the NFL, they can be a big advantage. Able to rest up players and game plan, not just look at 3 reels of tape on a team. You can probably look at the whole season, game plan there, and also look at individual players to find some ways to take advantage of that. So, big advantage this time of year for teams coming off.
Let me ask you about next week, because we're already looking ahead to next week. What do you think the line's going to come in at for USC?
Who can play quarterback for Clemson? I mean, that's the big question mark. So, if Watson, they're saying there's a chance he's going to play now.
Correct. There is a chance. They expect him to be able to.
If he plays, I would probably put them as a small favorite, 1 to 2 points. I'm in Clemson.
It's at Death Valley.
I think they'll be a 2-point favorite if Watson plays. If not, South Carolina could be as much as a 5 to 6 point favorite.
All right, let's get to your games you like for this week. For us, we'll begin with the SEC clash. Ole Miss and Arkansas, and Ole Miss is favored by 3.
Yeah, Ole Miss is now rested. When they were gassed, this was not the same team. So when they're gassed, they're I wouldn't say a mediocre defense or an average defense. They don't have a bite to them. The offensive turnover ratio this year for Wallace, 62% completion percentage with 22 touchdowns. It's a nice matchup for the number 88 Arkansas pass team. The game last year he played against them, he had 29 completions out of 38% for 428 yards. So he has had success against them. It seems like Arkansas tend to regress off a field-storming, goalpost-tearing down win here. I like Ole Miss here, 30
to 24. Ole Miss to cover. Okay. You've got Clemson and Georgia State on your list, and you've got the Tigers giving up 41.
Yeah, Georgia State, very little talent in the trenches, or many big playmakers, but their quarterback, Nick Arbuckle, this is a kid, when he's healthy, he can do some things, running and throwing the ball, good field general, and certainly right now that he has an advantage of the Clemson quarterback. Clemson just can't score, without Watson. I mean, you saw when he went out of the game, it almost reminded me of that Utah game the week before where the kid laid down the ball before he got in the end zone. The team just gave up. I mean, that was the difference here. Georgia State also well rested, come off a bye, 4-0 against the spread as a 30-plus point underdog. I have Clemson winning this game 41-10, but I have Georgia State covering the 41 points.
How about that? You think Georgia State will score on this Clemson defense?
Yeah, yeah, he moves around. You know, it's also motivation. You know, kids like Clemson, they're going to be waiting for the following week, so they're going to play, but you're probably not going to see their A game. And then also, if they get a lead, you know, they might take out some starters, rest them up for the following week. So 10 points is about where I think they'll end up scoring.
All right, to the NFL, you've got Tennessee laying 3 against this is back to the SEC. You've got Tennessee laying 3, well, it could be the NFL in some cases. Tennessee laying 3 against Missouri, and, of course, this game has SEC East implications.
Yeah, Mizzou, an amazing 9-0 against the spread the last 9 regular season road games. For some reason, you know, things get burned sometimes, and this team has done that. The heart and soul of the volunteer defense, A.J. Johnson, suspended for this game. With Dobbs, the ball sophomore quarterback. I just don't think their talent level is there right now for a big primetime game without Johnson on defense. So I'm going to say Missouri wins this game. Wrong team's favored. They upset Tennessee 28-24.
Ooh, all right. Well, I mean, what is it with Missouri and winning the SEC East? I mean, this is the team that gets very little respect, but they're in position to win the division again.
Yeah, well, you know, they don't have any real solid players that you say, okay, this guy's going to be a first or second round pick in the NFL. They just play hard. They know their role, and good coaching staff. They really scout teams, and they put their players in positions to succeed. Problem is when they face a so talented team, you can come up with the best game plan, but you go up against superstars, guys that are going to play in the NFL. Pretty tough to win.
All right, and to the NFL, and you've got the Saints against the Ravens, and the Saints are favored by 4.
Yeah, and the Saints team, the Saints were just absolutely dominant for a few years at home. Not the same this year. Drew Brees, 10 times already this season, compared to 12 all of last year. So not the same. Maybe he's lost a little off his fastball. Now he's going to have Drew and Suggs chasing him all game long. And there's another team, Baltimore, coming off the bye. They're going to be tough to beat here. I like Baltimore here, 30-24.
All right, your game of the week, Florida State laying 19 against Boston College.
Yeah, we're going to find out. Boston College had their number last year. They do it again this year. They almost won the game up there in Boston. So if you want to find out and get this Florida State Boston College game, be one of the first 5 callers. Call 800-400-9741. I'm always getting calls and emails from people saying, hey, love the service, I love the free games, but I'd love to come on board. Just don't have the bankroll, or I'm a small player. I play $20 to $50. Well, once a year, I always try to help everyone out. I come up with a promotion that anyone can afford. 9 games combined, Saturday and Sunday, just $39. That's right. 9 games, just $39. That comes out to $4 a selection, 9 combined on Saturday and Sunday. How do you get it? It's an internet special only, ParamountSports.com. As soon as you purchase it, window will pop open with all the games. So don't wait. Don't hesitate. It's going to be a great weekend. 9 for $39 special, ParamountSports.com or 800-400-9741.
All right, Lee, thank you. Sounds like a winner there with that deal, and hopefully Lee's going to be a winner once again, as he was this past week with us, going 3-1. Thanks to Lee Sterling from Paramount Sports. Back with more Sports Talk in a moment.
Cups with the ice, and we do this every night. I ain't check the price. Make my own. Easy coming. Game contract.
Check one, check one.
I do. Thank you guys. Very similar to the week we had before we played Florida.
Lorenzo Ward comments coming up for you in just a moment. But first, tonight's high school football report brought to you by South Carolina Farm Bureau Insurance. And tonight we take a look at the Players of the Week as chosen by David Shelton of the High School Sports Report. In 4A, Dupree Hart from Northwestern, 2 of 36 passing, 409 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 79 yards rushing, and scored twice in the playoff win over Wando. Of course, he is signed to play baseball for the College of Charleston. 3A, Kyle Belak from Myrtle Beach, senior receiver, made a start at corner in last week's playoff game and had 3 interceptions, returning 1 for a touchdown. He also caught 2 touchdown passes on offense. In 2A, it's Omar Sims from Newberry, rushing for 239 yards, 2 touchdowns in the upset of Woodruff. In 1A, Trey Caesar from Lamar, 230 yards rushing, 4 touchdowns in a win over Rich Spring Monetta. And the Skeeza Player of the Week, T.J. Brady from Hammond, running back, 262 yards, 4 touchdowns. And the Skyhawks go to the championship game for the 9th consecutive year. There you go, high school football report tonight. Now to comments from USC defensive coordinator Lorenzo Ward, brought to you by South Carolina soybeans farmers and their checkoff. Learn more at scsoybeans.org. Pork, powered by soy. And the coach was asked after practice today how things went on the practice field this afternoon.
I do. Thank you guys. Very similar to the week we had before we played Florida.
Wayman, this Vaughn kid, does your mind anybody you faced already this year?
Again, he's a athletic quarterback that can throw it and he can run it. We play a lot of quarterbacks that can throw it and run the football. So, he's adding on to the rest of the guys that we faced so far.
Expected him to start?
Oh, yeah, no question. I think he'll start. I think he was 20 for 28 for 182 yards and, brought him back and had a big win. So, I think they got to go with it.
They don't score a lot of points. What do they do well?
Well, again, they're a zone read team, and they spread you out and throw the football. They try to move the ball methodically down the field. I think it's probably 60-40 run the pass. But I got some big good receivers. 13, when their better tight end is supposed to be back. He didn't play last week, I don't think. But, they got some good skilled players and the running backs. Even though they lost number 8 for the season, they got some still good running back. Got a big back that's about 230 pounds, and they got another little scat back number 2 that can really cut. So they're a big zone team.
You like Walton and Moore playing together maybe for the rest of the year, or is that?
You can't, if it's not broke, don't fix it. So we had some good production from both of them in the Florida game. We'll hopefully have that production this coming Saturday.
Will Bryson continue to shuffle between corner and safety?
He will. He practiced. He's been mainly at safety all week, but he played some corner today, and he'll especially in crucial times, we could move him back outside.
What do you think your secondary will look like on Saturday?
I think it's Chris Lamont and Rico at corner, and Bryson and TJ, I believe, starting at safety.
Wayman, you ever had a season personally where you felt it was under the microscope as this one?
No, but that's what you coach for. You be a competitor, and things don't always go well for you. So, this will be a great learning experience for me, the staff, the players, the whole 9 yards. Things hadn't went the way that we thought they would go coming into the season. But, I think the kids are staying together and they're fighting. And, again, if we play as a team, we'll have a chance.
Did you ever have a difficult time dealing with it personally?
Not at all. Not at all. Again, my faith is in the Lord, the Savior, Jesus Christ. And so, I looked to him for my help. And, again, all we can do is work and coach them as hard as we can do and try to get them better.
I know you said after the game Saturday that it's about the kids, but for you personally, did you go home and feel like, all right, let out kind of a sigh of relief that finally things are kind of turning the way you want them to?
Well, I think I won't have a sigh of relief until we can do it on a consistent basis. And, again, we play well against Georgia and at times, and then we come back and we didn't play very well. So we got to repeat that performance, hopefully, on Saturday, and if we do that and do it again and again with 2 more opportunities, if we do, then I'll have a sigh of relief.
Did you sense a little boost in morale this week after the good performance against Florida?
Well, I think they understand now if 11 people are trying to do the same thing, and the enthusiasm and the hustle and getting guys to the ball, and if you do that, good things will happen. I think they understand now. Not that they didn't in the past, but I think if they understand that we can do it, they can play good. I think there was a little doubt after a couple of games in that whether we really could play defense, and I think that was will give them some momentum and confidence, hopefully in this ballgame.
All right, there you go. Lorenzo Ward with his fingers crossed, hoping the defense will continue to mature and come together as a group. Maybe some of the combinations they have come up with here of late will pan out for South Carolina here down the stretch. We'll see how they play against South Alabama. He has some concerns about the quarterback South Alabama will throw at them and what he can do. But still, from a pure physical standpoint, they should be the Gamecocks on defense. We'll be back with recruiting after the break. right, we get to tonight's recruiting report here on Sports Talk, and it's brought to you by South Carolina's Electric Cooperative, sponsors of the 2014 Touchstone Energy Bowl, coming up in just a couple of weeks, December 3rd. Plans to be there to join us for what should be a great day of football at Doug Shaw Memorial Stadium. All right, first of all, in recruiting, defensive back Marcus Lewis of Washington, D.C., has set an official visit with Clemson for the USC weekend, according to Adam Friedman of Rivals.com. So he's the guy the Tigers have turned to after losing Juwan Briscoe to a decommitment yesterday. Lewis has visited Washington State. He also has visits set with Kentucky, Miami, and Ole Miss. And he's been committed a couple of times. I'm trying to remember. I think once to Virginia Tech, and I think once to Florida, if my memory serves me right. He was a guy Clemson recruited earlier, and he had planned to come in for a visit, did not make it in, and then he started making commitments elsewhere. But he's still on their radar and still on their board, and they're going to bring him in for a visit. Linebacker Daniel Fennell of Loganville, Georgia, will be at USC Saturday with his father and a friend. This will be an unofficial visit. He confirmed once again last night. He does plan to return to USC in January for an official visit. He also plans to take official visits with Michigan State, Duke, Georgia Tech, and Missouri. He's narrowed his list to those, and he doesn't have a current favorite. He said the visits will determine things. However, he did not rule out the possibility of a commitment to USC on Saturday if everything looks good and falls into place and his dad gets a good feel for things at USC. Also visiting Clemson on Saturday will be place kicker Alex Barber from Cumming, Georgia. He's been to Clemson before this season. Vanderbilt and Liberty also have been showing interest. He's got a strong leg this year, field goals of 56 and 52 yards. Quarterback Brandon Malcolway of Newtown, Pennsylvania, USC's top target for quarterback in the 2016 class. He plans to make his decision as early as January or February. He's been working with the final six of USC, Auburn, Florida, Penn State, Virginia Tech, and Duke. He was at USC for the Georgia game, Auburn for the LSU game. He's also been to Penn State. He'll go to Florida on Saturday. Very unusual that a big-time recruit will visit a school where the staff has been fired, but because of his relationship with the staff, he is going to honor his plans to go down there for a visit. He remains in touch with USC recruiter G.A. Mangus, who was at his last playoff game. He does not think he'll be able to visit Duke or Virginia Tech before he makes his decision. No favorites from those final six. This season, he had over 2,100 yards passing, 1,100 yards rushing. He threw for 18 scores, and he rushed for 20. All right, there you go with the recruiting report tonight here on Sports Talk. It's the top of the hour break. We'll be back with more from here in Charleston, as well as from the Colonial Life Arena and from our studios in downtown Columbia. And love to hear from you on the phone lines. 800-956-7266 is how you can dial us up. We'll be back.
Live from Columbia, this is Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. Be a part of tonight's show. Call us at 800-956-7266 or email talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, here are your hosts for Sports Talk, Phil Kornbluth, Kevin McCrary, and Tom Hayes.
Okay, we're back. Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network from Charleston. We are here at the Cougars Arena, the site for the Charleston Classic, also known as the TD Arena. Used to be, of course, the John Kress Arena here at Charleston, but they refurbished it, rebuilt it a few years ago. It's a beautiful, beautiful arena. And right now, late in their game, it is Charlotte leading Penn State 72-65, 5:20 to play. The winner there advances in the winner's bracket, and South Carolina Colgate coming up. And the winner there will play the winner of this one tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. The losers will play tomorrow night at 9 o'clock. No games on Saturday, and then games on Sunday. The championship game set for like 9 o'clock on Sunday night. Let's hit the phones. We go to Mike in Manning here on Sports Talk on a Thursday night. Hi, Mike. Welcome into the program.
Hey, Phil, man. Hey, thanks for taking my show, and love listening. Thank you for taking my call, and I love listening to you guys at night. Hey, check this out, Phil. My honest opinion, I think all this stuff is smoke screen and mirrors. There's no way, man. You got to kind of question Sweeney and the Clemson coaching staff sanity. That injury the young man Watson took, that's a serious injury. I know it's just a sprain. There's no way this kid with stitches in his hand, because I question why they were running him so much against Georgia Tech. He still got stitches in his hand, and you mean to tell me he's got a sprained MCL, and you're going to play him within 3 weeks of that injury, and with 2 weeks of that injury, and it takes 3 weeks minimum for it to heal? No way Watson plays Saturday. If I'm a Clemson fan, I would be frustrated. But look, they got they're number 2 in recruiting now, I think, behind Alabama. They're going to most likely finish with a top 10 class. Depending on what Jameis Winston, if he comes back, they probably won't be favored. But if he declares they're going to be favored to win the Atlantic next year, no way I play Watson next Saturday. No way. I just want to get what you guys thought. If he's not 100%, no way I risk that young man over a rivalry game that really, it means a lot here, but in the grand scheme of things, no way out. That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah. All right, thanks for your phone call, and that's a very tough question that the Clemson coaching staff will have to answer next week once they further evaluate him. First of all, you've got to see how healthy he is the first of the week. Then you have to see how much can he practice as you go through Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Keep in mind, he's had very limited practice here of late, Pro, because of the broken finger. Now he's missing practice because of the knee injury. How much practice can he get? How much can you get him prepared? I tend to agree with you. I tend to have some severe doubts about playing him to begin with, number one. Number two, how much can he play? And number three, how effective he can play if you indeed let him play. We'll have Pro's take on it coming up after the break, and we'll take more of your calls as well. Caller brings up an excellent point, 800-956-7266. Back in a moment. right, back we are on Sports Talk 800-956-7266, and we're down to 3:40 to play between Charlotte and Penn State, and it is 74-67. The 49ers trying to hang on. South Carolina loosening up in the hallway just behind me. I'm outside the press room down here in the bowels of the TD Arena in Charleston, and the Gamecock locker room is just down the hallway from me. Players come out to start stretching their legs and limbering up those knees and getting ready to hit the court here for their warm-ups in just a few minutes. The game is obviously not going to start on time, scheduled for a 7:30 tip. Not going to make the 7:30 tip time because the game ahead of it is still going on. I wouldn't think they're going to make the 7:30 tip time. Meantime, over at Colonial Life Arena, USC and Clemson underway in the women's game, and the USC women received their SEC championship rings tonight prior to the game, and I think did they raise a banner to recognize the SEC championship and NCAA tournament appearance? They do that as well?
I think they probably will. I wouldn't see why not. But you had to wait that long to get the rings, eh?
Well, I was asking if they I thought that you would know if they actually did it tonight. You're supposed to be kind of on top of those sort of things.
No, I'm not on top of those things. I'm not for hanging rags at the ceiling of arenas anyway. Just give me
You're
the
not.
ring.
Why not? I mean, you're not for raising banners to recognize championships and things like that.
Put a plaque out in the concourse area where everybody can see it. They're not going to be looking up at those banners when the game is going on. As they walk into the building, look, if anything, hang the banners there outside in the where everybody can see it, even in the glass as they walk in, rather than hanging them over the court.
So you don't think the Celtics should be raising their banners and their retired numbers to the rafters? The Lakers doing the same thing in L.A.?
Well, the record book is what says that you're the champion. It's written there. I don't need a banner hanging there. But in the old Boston Garden, they actually needed those banners for insulation.
Yeah, this is true. All right, 800-956-7266 is our number. So going back to what I was saying, Pro, I mean, what do you do if you're Clemson and you've got Deshaun Watson, walking around? He says his knee feels fine. You're able to work him out some in practice, but here's a guy that's gotten very little practice of late, though he did look sharp in the Georgia Tech game, in the drives that he was in, especially running the football. But can you expect him, let's say he plays, let's say he starts, can you expect him to come out and run with reckless abandon? Now, he wasn't, as I recall, I go back and look at the numbers, I don't think he was as sharp throwing the football. I remember like his first couple of passes, I think, were kind of high over the heads of the receivers or something like that. I'm not so sure the sharpness in the passing game was there, but he certainly, before he got hurt, had the quickness and the explosiveness in his legs and had the running game going.
Yeah, I think it's a tough thing, tough call for the coaches. Obviously, if you think he can play, he'll play. But you think about it, you got at least 2 more years of this guy. You should have a team that's pretty dominant. I know they lose a lot on defense. They've got some good guys who've had some experience playing as backup. So you think your defense is not going to fall off that much. And he'll have the keys to the car alone next year. From the Cole Stout standpoint, here's the deal with Meekorn. You look at a guy, that maybe is not ready to test that knee yet. You give your senior most of the snaps this week. He's looking for a bounce back. And I will say this. When I've seen Cole Stout play at his best, he throws a great deep ball. When he gets into trouble is when they call those screens and those intermediate patterns when he throws it, in the middle of the field where there's a lot of trash and a lot of coverage. I would think probably if I'm Clemson, just on my thoughts, I would be sort of afraid to play my prized freshman quarterback. I think the senior has a great game left in him because, remember, he's been there for all those frustrating losses to South Carolina, so he knows how important this game is.
And I would test the USC secondary with him throwing the deep ball. And then once I have the fear of the safeties to play the deep ball, then I have to crank up the running game because I think Clemson can run the football. They just have not been stubborn with it. And that's cost them in some football games in the past, including, I think, probably one of the South Carolina games when they should have run the football instead of throwing it. So I would think from that standpoint, looking at Cole Stout, I think he has a great game left in him on senior day. On the other hand, as I said before, if people don't understand it, I know I'm old, look it up. You put Deshaun Watson in early, have him have the Willis Reed moment, maybe throw a touchdown pass, maybe throw a 20 or 30-yarder, and then get him out of there. And by that time, the crowd has erupted. They're at a fever pitch. South Carolina's down, and then you ride it with Cole Stout the rest of the way. So those are my two
Well,
scenarios.
that's an interesting approach to the game, and we'll see if Clemson adopts that. I don't know. I mean, I don't totally disagree with you that Cole Stout is not capable of going in and doing some good things. It depends on where his confidence level is. Again, against this Gamecock defense, which is not overpowering by any means, you would think he could stand up well and Clemson's passing game has been pretty much whittled down to dump offs to the running back, the screen passes, which are extended handoffs, the little tosses on the sweeps. I mean, occasionally they'll take a shot down the field, but Watson did complete 5 passes before he got hurt, but for only 27 yards. So the explosive nature of Clemson's offense against good teams, against teams of equal caliber, has sort of evaporated, and the speed at which they play is something else that's drastically changed with them here in recent games. They have slowed it down to a crawl by their standards. So there's been a lot of changeover in that Clemson offense here in recent weeks for whatever reason. But I do think that they have put a lot of their offense on this freshman, and the difference between when he's in there and when he's not in there is just dramatic. I'm not sure. We don't know at South Carolina. We haven't seen another quarterback play enough to know what kind of difference it would make at South Carolina. But I mean, when Connor Shaw was at South Carolina, and you put Dylan Thompson in, you didn't see that kind of dramatic drop-off. But at Clemson, when Watson's in there and he's healthy and able to do his thing, they have an entirely different attitude and approach and execution compared to when Cole Stout has come in a relief situation. Now, maybe if Cole is going in as the guy that's been game planned around all week, it's a different. We'll see how well, because they're game planning all week for him to be the quarterback. That makes a lot of difference with an offense, is who that quarterback is and has he been your quarterback all week.
Yeah, that's the key. I feel I have to go to the pros to compare a team that may have been mediocre but played out of their gourd when a certain person was in the game. And I'm talking about the first 2 or 3 years when Michael Vick was in with the Falcons. When he went out of a game, the collective psyche, even of the defense, went down. As soon as if he'd come in the game and make a spectacular run or a spectacular escape out of the pocket and throw it downfield and complete it, even the defense played better. It's hard to believe, but some quarterbacks have that charisma where they carry the whole team on both sides of the football.
You're exactly right. Update from over at the Colonial Life Arena. USC out to a 15-7 lead on Clemson, and here Charlotte leads Penn State 78-76 with 30 seconds to play. Back in a moment. Okay, we're back. Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. If you'd like to join us tonight, 800-956-7266 is the phone number. Lines are open. You can jump on board and join us here without any delay. Let's get to some of the email that's come into us over the last couple of days. Michael writes into us. Our email address is talkback@sportstalksc.com. And he writes about the USC basketball game against Baylor. And he says that he knows that South Carolina's team has only played a couple of games. I don't have a good feeling about the year. They shot well against North Florida, poorly against Baylor, a much superior team, obviously. He's afraid, he says, the Gamecocks' lack of shooting touch, which has plagued them nearly every year for some years now, is going to prevent them from making much progress this year. He said no matter how well the players on a team do other things on the court, they usually have to be able to score consistently well enough with at least a decent team field goal percentage to progress. He believes the Gamecocks were 14-20 last year, including the tournament. He says this year I predict their record, including the SEC tournament, will be 19-15. If indeed it is 19-15, they may get an invitation to the NIT, which he says they should decline because they've already won it twice, and winning it or competing in it has never led them to much future success. Of course, every year is different, but just a few years ago, he writes, the Gamecocks won 22 and did not get a tournament bid. With the exception of a few teams, the SEC will probably be fairly weak in basketball this year. So he said if the Gamecocks want to make the tournament, in his opinion, they probably will need at least 23 wins, which would include any wins in the SEC tournament. That would mean 9 wins above last season. He says, I just don't see this happening. One final thought I have is this. The Gamecocks need to recruit some good shooters. Easier said than done. That's from Mike. Appreciate the email. Let's go back to the phones, 800-956-7266. Ronnie in North Augusta. Good evening, sir, and welcome in to Sports Talk.
Hey, Phil, how you and Pro doing tonight?
Good, good.
Hey, Phil, you sounded like you was a little bit surprised with Lee Sterling's point spread pick for the Carolina Clemson game, and I was too, because I mean, I think it's Josh Kendall one day in the week doing his column, and then they'll have a lot of things about usually on Saturdays about what Vegas says about the game. I saw that the other day, and Vegas was saying, the guy that he normally talks to, he was saying with Watson, if he plays, he would make Clemson from a 8 to a 9.5 point favorite. And if he didn't play, he would still have Clemson as a 7-point favorite at home. And I was surprised tonight to hear they got talking about a 2-point spread myself, as much as I would like for that to be true. But I know maybe I just got maybe you didn't, but you sounded like you kind of caught you a little bit surprised too.
Yeah. I mean, I was, because I'm thinking Clemson, regardless of Watson, assuming Stout doesn't get further hurt, with that defense at home, too tough. And we've got some free basketball coming up here in Charleston. Penn State ties it up at the buzzer. John Johnson hits a three, maybe a second to go. I wasn't in the arena, but I heard the roar at about the same time I heard the buzzer go off. His only basket of the game sends the game into overtime, 83-83. So USC and Colgate, that game's not going to start now until after 8 o'clock, so make your plans accordingly. I mean Cornell, I'm sorry. Thank you, Cornell. And as far as the women's game is concerned at the CLA, it's all USC. They're on a 7-0 run over the last 90 seconds. They've got a 35-15 lead on Clemson. Yeah, Lady Gamecocks, I'm sorry. Hang on a second.
Bite your
the
tongue.
Gamecocks can, well, I slapped myself appropriately for doing that. That was a rare slip. You notice I don't say that very often. That was a rare slip. But here's the problem. Clemson calls their team the Lady Tigers, so I'm in lady mode, so I have to kind of catch myself. So the women Gamecocks are up by 20, and let's see, leading the, well, they've got balanced scoring. Mitchell has 7, Wilson has 6, Welch has 6, Sessions has 4. So they're rolling, shooting about 52%. 4 of 7 from three-point range. So USC women's team on their way to another win, and probably going to ascend to the #1 ranking considering what happened earlier this week in women's basketball.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. But, you know, I get that feeling, you know, women's basketball rankings a little bit different than men. I'm not so certain that's a given. I think probably in one of the polls it may happen just because people want to see somebody else than UConn at the top of the women's poll. But I'm almost certain that in one of the polls, UConn, even with the loss, will stay #1.
Yeah, maybe you're right. Old habits are hard to break. 800-956-7266 is our phone number. A little bit more on Clemson and their injury situation going into their game Saturday against Georgia State. Their injury report is being out, of course, to Martin Jenkins. Corey Crawford, who suffered an ankle injury in the Georgia Tech game, listed as doubtful, as is B.J. Goodson. David Beasley is listed as probable, but, you know, he's another one with a sore knee. If he's not 100%, I'd sit him out and get him ready for next. You don't need David Beasley to beat Georgia State. If you do, you got big problems. I'd sit him out and get him as rested as possible for the next week as well. 800-956-7266. Get back to some email. We've had some very good email come in to us here at Sports Talk. Talkback at sportstalksc.com. This is from Dusty talking about the college football playoff rankings this week. And he says Oregon should not be in the top 4 of college playoffs. Compare their schedule with TCU, Florida State, Alabama, and others. They only play 3 ranked teams, and their one loss is to an unranked Arizona team. Granted, Florida State only plays 3 ranked teams, but they are unbeaten. There are other 8-1, even 7-2 teams who have tougher opponents than Oregon. I think he wrote this last week. Look at Arizona State's schedule, for instance. It's still politics in football. Nothing's changed. Well, I think, you know what, it's going to be even more political this time because it's all about subjectivity here. It's all about the human decision. 100% the 4 teams being selected will be chosen by people. In the past, it was a mixture of people and computers. Now it's just all people. So there will be a great deal of subjectivity involved here, Pro. And, they face an impossible situation. The way this thing is set up, there's no way you can do it and not have some people left out who feel like they should be one of the 4 teams in, which is, of course, going to lead to a loud cry to expand to 8 teams, as John Swofford, the ACC commissioner, has already gone on record as saying he'd like to see it go to 8 teams.
Well, you know, I beg to differ with the writer because, you know, a lot of people look at the West Coast and they want to poo-poo the football. I mean, the Pac-12 is good this year. I mean, it is tremendous. I don't know where he's been looking, but they've got some strong teams in the Pac-12. And let's face it, when we go to the South, we look at Georgia and Florida as tremendous bastions of football talent in which to be tapped, not only by the home schools, but teams from all over the country going there. Same for the state of California. I mean, there's a lot of football talent in the state of California, and let's face it, some of the Southwest teams in the Pac-12 siphon off some of that Texas talent. So there's talent pools on that side of the country as well, and the Pac-12 has done a better job of it. I mean, Rich Rod I think he's about to really turn the corner at Arizona. They have been a tremendous team, and of course the only team to tag Oregon with a loss, and that was at Autzen Stadium at Oregon. So, and Arizona State is a good football team as well under Chris, as we saw them just blow out Notre Dame on their football field. So yeah, I think Oregon deserves a shot. I think they're a good football team. Whether they can win, they've shown in the past they can't. They're not as stout as some of the SEC teams they played in the past. But this team it also has that speed and can strike quickly, similar to Clemson. When they play football, it's just, and I think their defense is a little bit more salty this year. So I disagree with the writer. I think Oregon is one of the top 4 teams right now.
Well, I tell you, we're going to hear a lot of squawking. Is if Alabama goes ahead and wins out and wins the SEC championship, and Mississippi State wins out. All right, that means beating Ole Miss to close out the season. People are going to squawk about there being 2 SEC teams in the 4 once again. And, you're going to have, let's just say Ohio State runs the table. They lost early in the year with a young backup quarterback who has since, taken off and been on fire, and they've steamrolled everybody. They're going to be sitting there 11-1. TCU's been great pretty much all year. They're sitting there 11-1, assuming they continue to win. Those are the 2 programs that are going to have the greatest arguments about being left out, if they are indeed left out. But they really will be squawking about the fact that there's 2 SEC teams. And see, Mike Slive, as part of his push for this playoff, insisted, and he would not back down, he insisted that the committee pick the 4 best teams regardless of league and not be limited to conference champions only. And he's going to, as things stand right now, he's going to get his wish of having half the field made up of SEC teams, and you're going to have a rematch in the semifinals, which I'm not sure is going to excite people who wanted something fresh and something new. The people who pushed for the playoff insisted and argued that this would be a better system and would be a fresh system, a clean system, but I don't think it's going to be anything like that.
No, I agree with you. As I said before, the idea of a championship game is to crown a champion. It's not to crown best team. And that means if your system is flawed, the best team a lot of times is not going to be crowned champion because they can get knocked off along the way. I think the big problem in college football and in college basketball is if you're in a conference where you got to get a lot of chances to play against a top-ranked team or top-ranked teams, you're going to look good in the eyes of the committee, even though the committee said they're not looking at rankings. We know they are. And let's face it, the opportunities to play ranked teams is there in the Southeastern Conference. In basketball, conversely, the ACC has so many nationally ranked teams that they have more chances to play against top-ranked teams, so their chances of getting in the top echelon of bids is always there. So the system is flawed right there from the beginning if they keep looking at the polls.
All right, we'll hit a break. We'll get an update from K-Mac from the women's game in a moment. Don't go away. you're a Gamecock fan rushing to this arena to make tip-off, take your time. There's no rush. They're going to double overtime.
Wow.
Between Penn State and Charlotte. It's 90-90. So you got time. If you're in this way, don't kill yourself. There's room and there's time to get here. Double overtime now. Penn State and Charlotte tied at 90. So now the USC game against Cornell, the Big Red, probably won't tip off before 8:20, maybe 8:30, depending on how long this overtime takes and if they go to a third overtime. Meantime, they are at halftime at the Colonial Life Arena. USC having its way with Clemson. K-Mac's got the report. K-Mac.
Yes, Corn. Still awaiting my halftime stats, but I can tell you the Gamecocks are comfortably ahead right now at the half, 25-21, the halftime score. And Clemson scored the first 4 points of this one, and it's been all Gamecocks from that point on. And it is a clear mismatch. It doesn't take a basketball expert, Corn. Even you could sit here and look at the Gamecock squad and then look at the Clemson squad and say, yeah, that squad's going to be better. It's going to be a tough matchup for Clemson. I'm trying to think of all my analogies. If it was men's basketball, I'd say it's men against boys. So I guess here we'd say women against girls, if that works. Varsity versus JV, it's not much of a matchup here for the Tigers. I feel a little bad for them.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of the numbers, and Wilson off the bench has 10 points. She's made all 4 of her shots. Welch has 9. I mean, it's a typical USC women's outing, K-Mac. The scoring is balanced. Dawn Staley's able to go to her bench without any concerns about drop-off and use a lot of different players out there. They're bigger, they're stronger, they're faster than Clemson.
Yeah, and you mentioned Asia Wilson off the bench. She's a freshman, but she's 6'5". She's a big body underneath, and of course they have, Elena Coates is a sophomore, and she's another big body underneath, 6'4", and they just feed those two inside, and then you have Tiffany Mitchell on the outside that can fill it up. They're a very good team, and that's what they're ranked second in the country. They are legit. They definitely pass the eye test and pass me on the court test too. I should also say, Corn, with the men's team in action, and certainly that's going to peel away some people that made the trip down to Charleston or want to watch that game on ESPN3. But there is a great crowd here at Colonial Life Arena. The lower bowl completely full and spattering the people in the upper portions of the arena too. So a very solid crowd here at Colonial Life.
All right, K-Mac, thank you very much. So USC women continue to dominate here of late in their rivalry against the Clemson women. And how fans are pro. They're watching every sport head-to-head between the Gamecocks and the Tigers. So you're going to notch this one up on the side of South Carolina. South Carolina just won the playoff soccer match between the two women's teams. Now, I think Clemson, I'm trying to go through memory here, I think Clemson won the soccer matches in the regular season. Did they not, both the men and the women?
I think so. I think you're right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, they're pretty even, I think. I don't have the number right in front of me. I don't recall how they did volleyball-wise against each other. I think South Carolina, I don't know. I better check that. I don't recall. Maybe somebody can tell us how the volleyball match turned out when they faced off. But it seems like it's a pretty even semester at this point head-to-head going into the football game next week, which only counts as one victory one way or the other, but it seems a lot more for the winning side.
It's the crown jewel, as they say. Yeah, this South Carolina team is going to be a tough out. They've got a lot of players and the size. As I said before, Dawn Staley did not have size when she came here, and it showed on the court, especially when she took on the Kentuckys and Tennessees and Ole Misses in Arkansas. But this team now is poised, and we thought Dawn Staley did some great work at Temple. What would she do with an SEC women's job, which is some people say is the best women's basketball conference? The ACC would argue. But we see now that through slowly but surely building her national recruiting base and keeping some of the youngsters at home, she has built a power at South Carolina where they can look up and there's over 10,000 people in the stands.
Oh, no question about that. I mean, people, I think, were taken aback when her salary details of the most recent raise and extension were announced. I mean, it was pretty heady stuff for women's basketball around here. But, you know, I think they feel like they're getting it back in spades when they talk about the size of the crowds coming in, not to mention all the great public relations stuff that Dawn Staley has done, not only in the community, but nationally. And we are talking about one of the most renowned women's basketball players ever, a member of the Hall of Fame. So whatever they're paying her, she's worth every penny in terms of what she's returning to the program and to that university. We'll be back in a moment. Let's wrap things up from here in Charleston. Get ready for some USC basketball here in a few minutes, we think. Charlotte leading Penn State 99-95 with 55 seconds to play. And let's see who's tearing it up in scoring for Penn State. DJ Newbill has Bryant shooting 31 times, 13 of 31 for 33 points by DJ Newbill. He's the high scorer in the game. And it's 99-95 Charlotte with 55 seconds to play. The winner of this one awaits the winner of South Carolina and Cornell, which will get underway here at some point in time when this game is over. As far as some other basketball around the country today, Michigan gets a tussle from Detroit, not the Pistons, but the University. 71-62. VCU wins handily. Is leading handily. Oh, my goodness. They're in the first half, and VCU's got 58 points. 58-28 over Maryland Eastern Shore. Iowa leading Texas at the half, 30-24. East Carolina, Jeff Lebo and company, rolling it up on Virginia Lynchburg at the half, 51-24. NC State over Jacksonville, 35-12 at halftime. And Tennessee and Texas Southern deadlocked at 30. They are at halftime. And let's see, what else? West Virginia leading George Mason 16-9. First half there. Winthrop and Savannah State tipping off later. Of course, College of Charleston today playing in Puerto Rico. gave the defending champion Connecticut team a pretty good tussle before falling to the Huskies. Final score there was 65-57. Anthony Stitt led Charleston with 17 points. He also had 4 rebounds and 3 assists. Also in that tournament, Dayton beat Texas A&M 55-53 on a stick-back, on a putback at the buzzer to win that game. Boston College beat New Mexico 69-65. All right, there you go. You're up to date on college basketball.
Well,
the USC women are leading at the half 45-21 and 101-97 here with 40 seconds to go. The Gamecocks are getting antsy, Pro. Frank Martin has been walking up and down the hallway here. Players are out there bouncing balls off the wall. They're ready to play.
And, of course, a big one that could decide the other division in the ACC is North Carolina at Duke in football. They just kicked off in the first quarter, no score. And, of course, in the NFL tonight in a rainy Northern California, it's the Chiefs at the Raiders.
Boy, I tell you what, if South Carolina Clemson ever moved their rivalry game to a Thursday night for ESPN, I'm quitting. Now people will campaign to get that done, I'm sure. Thank you, Pro. Thank you, Steak Man. Have a great night, everybody. We'll see you back here tomorrow night on Sports Talk.